Kicking off the record is something I can only describe as a spectral pop piece. The swallowing current of electronics around Megan's swirling phantom vocals is ear candy to me. There is a line where she mentions filling up her insides with rubies, perhaps being a statement on how much more value a dead thing has as opposed to if it was alive. I think it's a tremendous opener. Compared to the last track sounding like I was listening to a very harsh flood, this track sounds like it is the calm before a voltaic storm. I love the sharp, bright keyboards and the swirling textures quite a lot, especially as it permeates throughout the chorus. The verses, refrain, and outro all sound depressingly endearing to what I think is trying to explain this theme of trying to find solace in a storm, which is in credit to Megan's incredible vocal performance on the track. I think this song is just outright incredible from a sound perspective, but it also makes for a very engaging piece of music as well. PEACEFALL further expands on the album's dynamic sound palette. The utilization of these orchestral undertones with the glistening electronics makes for a very interesting kind of fusion between classical and electronic music. I love the hypnotic chorus as well as the fascinating lyrics. I think it goes over this peril of someone going through something severely traumatizing and trying to escape, hence the lines about riding your bike into the light like a maniac, kind of to ingrain this mentality as the track closes out with this atmospheric send-off. Another exemplary track. While there are things about this track I like, such as Megan's vocals and the interesting lyrical themes, I don't think the end result is all that satisfying for me, at least. The previous three tracks were able to mix and mesh sound dynamics, tragic themes, and vocal sincerity in outstanding fashion, while here it doesn't sound as finely tuned or refined. The instrumental is relatively mundane, and I think the core melodies of the track are a bit underdeveloped and doesn't do a whole lot to accentuate the topic at all. FEMIA, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, features a centerpiece of someone who has died in their sleep, as Megan mentions in the first leg of the track that they went to sleep and woke in a sea of dark liquid. The melancholic production has this great sonic sense of grief, as if the clouds are gray and raining down on the sorrow of others during this time of tragedy. The mournful vocals are incredible, especially on the pensive chorus, and makes for one hell of a relatable sad song. I love the expansive instrumental with the orchestral overtones carrying this sense of expedition. I think the electronic tidbits and overbearing drum loops sound really good too. The linkage tinge of the vocals along with the lyrics describe, I think, what is about a long distance relationship and how both parties are similar to one another. I think spiritually, at least. The progression of the track virtually enhances everything about it, and I do think it ends abruptly, like there's a lot more the song could have had or had more in store for the listener, but despite that, it is an engaging track. Through a ghastly opening, Vehemence has more of a temporal spin on synthpop here more than any other track. The instrumental and overall feeling of the track is more soothing, though the drums are clearly amplified in relation to the track. Topically, there are mentions of calamities and angels, perhaps equating the two and saying that prayers and things of that nature are a farce, essentially. I think through a sarcastic tone. I like how the track is mixed, where layers of vocals and instrumentation is scattered through the left and right channels, mystifying the experience altogether. It's just a really solid track. There's not a whole lot of depth to this track in its totality. The songwriting is pretty bare bones, the vocals aren't doing anything special to grab my attention, and the instrumental isn't bad. It just sounds like it had a lot of its potential to be a notable track, but it feels woefully underdeveloped, or it just didn't feel like they put a whole lot into really furthering the sound. As opposed to the rest of the album, I think this is probably the most bland track to me. What an oddly beautiful track. It sounds like it comes straight off of the Death Stranding soundtrack. I love that this track gives itself its own breath of fresh air. There isn't any electronic grooves or house elements or a single iota of like pop sensibility on this track, instead focusing on creating this dynamic soundscape. The vast, open, oceanic atmosphere, which is made up of these pianic embellishments and these echoing electronics, radiate throughout the entire soundscape of the track. I adore the reverb vocals in unison with the production, making for quite a unique song in the track list. After having an album full of dark motifs, I think Stardew concludes the album with a brighter send-off. There are more contemporary elements included in the melodic structure, like the vocalizations and the harmonic progression. I like the core melody of the track a lot, and the EDM heavy instrumental doesn't feel out of place, and even though the song didn't wow me as much as the other tracks did, I think it still makes for an enjoyable end for the album. I think this is Purity Ring's best album so far, or at least the one that I enjoyed the most. They were able to pull together a consistent record that didn't sound like some of the songs were pulled off of different pools of ideas and themes, so it's not as jarring when all these elements come together like it was on their last two albums. Their approach to sound, in my view, has improved quite a lot. They give each track a unique sense of sonic detail, paired with the duo's methods of handling more depressing topics, makes them a lot more notable and much more memorable than they ever have been. And while I did like their last two albums, they never fully stuck with me because I think as entire pieces of work, I only came to like 3 or 4 songs each, as opposed to this one where I like the majority of the record. I give it a